right, I'm going to kick us off. Hi, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to what very well might be PBS's 41st State of the School event. I imagine back in those early days that our founding head of school, Jack Towner, Coach Drake, Miss Little, and then only a handful of parents. And yet today, you fast forward and we're a thriving, active, engaged community of almost 290 students. Many of, or some of whom I should say, are even second generation PBS students, which is very cool. So my name's Corey Malloy. My wife, Jen, and I have been in this community for 10 years and have loved it. Each of our three kids started in ELC-A. Our oldest graduated in 2017. And we currently have a fifth grade girl, Marin, and second grade boy, Toby. And one thing that Jen and I love about PBS is the morning drop-off. I love when we drop our kids off and they're greeted every morning by the familiar smiling faces. And then we watch them roll out of the car with their way too big backpacks and they dash off to their respective classrooms. And so for me, that's the leading indicator that we're on the right path for at least one of our remaining core values, the love of learning. But thanks for coming this evening. The State of School is one of our more formal school-wide events. I've always enjoyed it. I hope you will too. And my task is simple. I've been asked to, in a few minutes, summarize what the board's been working on since last year's State of the School event that Mike spoke at. But first, I'd like to recognize most of the audience here. There are 16 other trustees comprised of former and current parents and alumni. And rather than standing up or waving, et cetera, I just really do want to sincerely thank those of you who are here tonight, who are trustees, for the many, many hours that you contribute to PBS. It's been, between committees and other efforts, it's quite a bit, so thank you. So what's the board been working on since last year's State of the School? Because of our school's singular focus on pre-K through fifth, we believe that being the best pre-K through fifth school around is a very reasonable and attainable goal. At last year's State of the School, Scott outlined a very bold vision for doing so. We, 2 months ago as a board, approved taking the next steps on turning that vision into a reality, focused on 3 key initiatives. First, faculty. Attract, develop, retain talented faculty, without whom nothing else really matters. And clearly, being in the Bay Area, the cost of living, it's a real struggle for every school. But we are trying to be leaders. We're trying to reach out to our faculty. We're trying to reach out to other heads of schools. We're working on solutions. We're listening, we're searching, we're sharing, and we're also learning. Second was advancing the curricular innovation, such as, for example, designing a new invention program at PBS. And then lastly, it's campus development. We've been here for 40 years. We love it. It's home. So we've been spending a lot of hours trying to figure out how we make this our permanent home and make this the best place it can be to meet the needs of our current students and future students. And Scott will actually have some late-breaking, exciting news on that topic later in the evening. So as you know, we have several short-term, long-term initiatives. They've been specifically identified, much of them from you. We recognize that as a pre-K through fifth school, we need to be really thoughtful about the balance between short-term initiatives that a lot of our current students will see the immediate benefit from, and longer-term initiatives that will be for future students, maybe even third-generation PBS students. So Scott's going to talk tonight about a couple of the shorter-term initiatives that we're implementing right now, and we'll start to see the immediate benefit from over the next year or two. On the longer-term ones, they remain kind of in process. We've had some really positive and helpful early feedback from all of you in our initial conversations, but there's much more work to do, much more to learn from you. So I would encourage and expect that you're going to hear from us over the next 12 months as we flesh out those longer-term initiatives. And then lastly, since last year, we've been engaged in a intense and thorough accreditation process. This occurs every 7 years. The process has entailed countless hours and tremendous amount of work for our team. It's resulted in a 99-page PBS overview document, a multi-day site visit, and the visiting educators that came to our school, has provided some initial positive feedback and also some initial and helpful recommendations. But I really do want to thank the team because it was a tremendous amount of work to kind of get through this, which we're almost through accreditation process. So thank you to all of you here tonight who spent a lot of time and effort on that. So with that, I'll pass this over to Andrew Hauser. Andrew's in his 6th year on the board, 3rd year as chair of the Finance Committee. I think he set the bar very high for himself last year with an excellent presentation, so I'll be curious to see what he has in store this evening. After Andrew, you'll hear from PBSA President Chuck Vedano, and then Scott will be our keynote speaker. And I'm also told if we finish with time that Grady Burnett has agreed to entertain the group later today. By singing the school song. So we don't want to run out of time. So with that, Andrew.
Hey guys, as Corey said, Andrew Hauser. Most of you know me, but for those who don't, I'm also, like Corey, 10 years into my PBS run with a graduated 7th grader and a 5th grader and a 3rd grader, so almost the exact parallel of Corey's run here. This is my 6th year on the board and 3rd year as chair of the Finance Committee. And I have done the same spiel for the past couple of years. Scott told me just to do the same thing again, but I was going to mix it up just a tiny little bit. Don't worry, just a tiny little bit, and talk about a few things that I've learned in the past 6 years on the board and Finance Committee. So the first thing I've learned is that running a school is really complicated. There's a lot of constituents' needs that you have to balance that I didn't fully appreciate it. In Silicon Valley, we often think about balancing the constituents of a business. You've got employees, you've got shareholders, you've got customers, you've got suppliers. That's pretty complicated and challenging. But if you think about a school, alumni, donors, communities, neighbors. I mean, it's a pretty complicated series of constituents, all of whom have different desires and needs and wants. And I didn't fully appreciate that before I joined the board. It's also a challenging part of the world to run a business, if you want to call it a business. Everyone knows it's incredibly expensive, and it's getting worse. Everyone knows that the CPI, or not everyone, most people know the Fed targets 2% inflation. That's about what the nation averages for the past few years. The Bay Area, it's been more like 3.5% for the past 3 years. The difference between 3.5% and 2% over an extended period of time is massive. So it's tough and it's getting worse. And it's just a crazy business model. I talked about a bit about this last year, but I said this to some new board members and I thought it was funny, so I'll say it to you, which is like, it's the only business I know where people celebrate inefficiency. Right? Like, yes, we're doing less with more, right? Like, if you think about a business, model, guess what? I've got this great business. We're going to start with a really small number of customers, and then we're going to invest more and do more, and never grow our customer base. How awesome does that sound? But that's what the education market demands, right? We want more program. We want better faculty. We want all in the context of what else do we want? We want smaller classrooms, right? We want smaller classrooms, but more stuff. And every other business I know is always thinking about year over year, how can we serve more customers per employee? Which the analogy of that in education would be bigger classrooms. Nobody wants that. It makes it particularly challenging. But with all that, all those challenges, tough market, tough part of the world, financially, the school's done a remarkable job at making it work. So getting into a bit of the nitty-gritty. Boom. This we go over every year. But 4 years ago, we set some key priorities for the school. And they are still the same. Campus permanence, Scott's going to touch that later. I won't steal his thunder. Attracting and retaining the best faculty. Corey hit on that. The most important thing you can do in an education institution, at least from our perspective. We set a goal of hitting the 75th percentile of compensation for our faculty in order to attract and retain great faculty, and also investing heavily in professional development. The third key initiative is accessibility. It goes directly to the earlier business model challenge I was talking about. If you've got something that's accelerating faster than the rate of inflation every year, that means it's getting less and less accessible each and every year. And some would argue that makes it less and less diverse if it's less and less accessible. Financial aid is used to help counterbalance that. Back post-financial crisis, PBS was at 7.2% of their tuition credited back in the form of financial aid. That compares to a California average of 13%. We've gradually, over time, inched back up to 11.5%, which is huge progress. Still below the California mean, though. And our last key initiative was building our endowment, which is now up to $10.5 million, and the 4% draw that comes from that every year is an important part of the school's budget. It's a ridiculously conservative allocation of 60% stocks, 40% bonds, which, if you think about it, permanent. I joke that this is like more conservative than my parents who are 75-year-old retirees, yet this theoretically should have an infinite investment horizon. So some future finance committee can hopefully address that. But it's great that it is growing. It's, for a school our size, it's a nice size, and it provides an important part of the budget. The role of the finance committee, to be honest, nothing on there super exciting, but you can read the slide. Maybe the last bullet, it's all important, not super exciting, but very important. The last bullet's maybe the most interesting, which is just trade-offs. Everything is trade-offs. We want more of everything, more program, more faculty, more infrastructure, more financial aid. And part of the finance committee's role is providing guidance to help balance the desire for more with long-term financial sustainability of the school. So getting a bit into the specifics of our financial statements. Where does all the money come from? Where does it all go to? The gross revenue of the school, about 11.67 million, coming primarily from tuition, benefit, and the annual fund. 91% of revenue comes from those three places. So remember that, 11.67 million. Where's the money going? Total expenses, 11.64 million. Not surprisingly, salaries and benefits, the biggest line item. Buildings and grounds, rent, depreciation, repairs, the next biggest, bigger than you typically see in a school because we pay rent. That's the downside. The upside is we don't have any interest expense, which a lot of schools that finance their real estate would have a significant interest line item. So those things, maybe they cancel each other out. But more importantly, just having everyone know that 11.67 million of receipts, 11.64 million of expenses, we're literally investing everything we get in the education of our kids. And equally importantly, I don't know if I can go back on this slide, but we literally couldn't do it without the annual fund, without the benefit. 12% of the operating expenses of the school. We couldn't do it with the support of our community. So to sum it all up, the business model is complex. We're in an expensive and challenging part of the world, but we make it work pretty well, thanks to Scott and his team, amazing teachers, and the incredible generosity of the community. So that is all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions now, or do you want me to save them for the end? Save it for the end? Perfect. Thanks.
I didn't get an introduction, did I? So yes, hi, I'm Chuck Vidano, and I am your PBSA president. I'm excited to speak to all of you, but I was going to ask all the chairs and volunteers and the co-chairs to stand up through this process. Perhaps all of you watching at home, in your offices, in your living rooms, you can stand when I ask you. So what is the PBSA? The Phillips Brooks Association is all of you, the parents of Phillips Brooks. The officers of the PBSA represent you and serve you. And so I want to point out who the officers are for all of you. If Maya Danny could stand. So Maya is our vice president. And I know Pooja is at home watching right now, and so Pooja Batra is our treasurer. Okay, but what does the PBSA do? What is our purpose? Our purpose is to foster a sense of community at Phillips Brooks. We do this by hosting events. Is that me? I hope not. Jeez. So our purpose is to foster a sense of community at Phillips Brooks. We do this by hosting events and supporting the PBS faculty and the administration. There are currently 38 chairs and co-chairs that make this happen, and an innumerable amount of volunteers. Through events like the Harvest Festival, the Benefit, the Book Fair, the Spring Luncheon, Common Ground speakers, and other events, we do our best to bring the PBS community together. And we support the school by shelving books, feeding healthy lunches to your children, leading tours of the school, hosting faculty appreciation luncheons, selling ribbons, bows, headbands in our spirit store, cleaning out the uniform closet, finding owners of lost items, and keeping us green. All of this is done by chairs, co-chairs, and so many volunteers. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the chairs and co-chairs out there for all that they do. These are the people that make our efforts successful. Thank you for everything that you do. So what's happening for the balance of the year? Our chairs, co-chairs, and volunteers will continue to host events and support the school. That never stops. As officers, we are now focused on finding new leaders to take on chair and co-chair roles that have opened up either due to term limits or graduation. There's a lot that is happening to meet that goal in the background, but the date to remember is Friday, March 29th. Right after Gather, we will host a coffee in the MPR to launch the chair and co-chair leadership process. This is the opportunity to get involved and learn about these leadership roles. We will present the roles available, answer questions, direct you to additional resources online, as well as put you in contact with the chairs themselves for additional information. Your opportunity to express interest in a chair or co-chair role will be open until mid-April. After that, we will assign roles and announce the new chairs in mid-May. So come to the meeting on March 29th. That's March 29th to become one of the PBSA chairs. There. Have I mentioned the date enough yet? Thank you for the time to speak to you. And once again, thanks to all of you who put in your valuable time to make Phillips Brooks the great place that it is.
Good evening. Warm up the crowd a little bit here. I'd like to thank Corey and Andrew and Chuck for sharing your remarks with us and for being so committed to making PBS a great place. I'd also like to thank all of you for coming tonight. We're a small group, but a very powerful group. I think there are a lot of people watching at home, and so you can talk to them tomorrow about all the things you learned about PBS tonight. I'd like to start by naming our primary goals as a school. Number one, we want to be extraordinary in every single program area, absolutely extraordinary, so that we can offer the best education for your children. Secondly, we really want to spark lifelong learning in all of our students, to spark learning today and lifelong learning in all of our students. So tonight, I would like to share with you some of the ways that we're doing that, ways that we as a school are always striving for excellence. After my talk, we'll have time for Q&A, whether it's about the finances or the board work or the PBSA, and I promise that we'll conclude around 7. I'd like to begin by sharing a little bit and highlighting a little bit about our accreditation process. We recently completed it. 6 educators pored over our self-study, 99 pages of rigorous assessment, plus hundreds of charts, graphs, spreadsheets, attachments, annual audit reports. They reviewed our school, stem to stern. We have not seen the final report yet, but they made a public presentation, and they made it very clear in that presentation that we have a lot to be proud of. We also felt, as a team, a real boost of enthusiasm about how we're doing as a school. There were 2 key takeaways that were very important to me. The first, they commended us for being a school that does what it says. That means that our intentions and goals are aligned with our actions. One of them said, for example, that it was actually refreshing to be at a school that doesn't just have a mission, but to be at a school that clearly means it. She actually said it. You're a school that means it when you name your mission. The second key takeaway that resonated with me was that the accreditation team's major recommendations actually identified areas that we are already working on. The good news here for me is that several of these third-party experts came from all over California to affirm both the direction and the content of the strategic work that's underway. I think that's really good news, that we mean it when we name our mission, and that the work that we're doing resonates with them as third-party experts and with our community. So as your leader, as your head of school, I see my role like this: elevate strategic imperatives, engage you as stakeholders, drive initiatives, and mobilize all of our resources to enable PBS to be its best. To enable PBS to be its best. Excellence in 3 priorities really makes PBS its best, and I'd like to name those 3 priorities. I think, like Corey and our board, that at PBS, teachers are our greatest institutional asset. So our faculty is our first priority. All faculty and staff here are teachers. Every single person who works on this campus, we're all teachers. All of the teachers model the PBS mission, they spark student learning, and they lead program innovation. That student-teacher bond that all of you talk about in surveys and with me, that bond is beautiful and sacred at PBS. Over 3 years in our annual surveys with students, this is what those students say about their teachers. My classroom teacher knows me well. 90% strongly agree or agree. My teacher cares about me. 96%. My teacher wants me to succeed and do well in school. 98%. I know what is expected of me in my classroom. 94% always and usually. It's my number 1 priority to retain and recruit the talent that makes that happen. In fact, I want PBS to be a talent magnet, to be a magnet for talent. You all have agreed with that. You've expressed agreement with that. We call this our faculty-first approach. It includes making sure that PBS remains a great place to work and that it has a collaborative workplace environment. In the faculty survey last spring, we asked faculty and staff this question: considering everything, thinking about everything, how satisfied are you with your work at PBS? 100% said very satisfied or satisfied. I think that's a strong rating. And over 2 years of these surveys, the average of teachers answered the following to these statements: my workplace gives me a personal sense of accomplishment. 97% said they strongly agree or agree with that statement. My colleagues and peers encourage me to be my best. 96%. And this one that's very important to me, I feel supported by the administration. 93%. Those are wonderful results, but we're not resting on those laurels because we are facing headwinds. And the headwinds and challenges are clear. The marked rise of cost of living in the Bay Area, making it very hard to retain faculty to live here. Curricular change is moving so fast that it's difficult to stay abreast. Recruiting diversity so that our teachers reflect the diversity of the school. Some also no longer consider teaching as a career, rather a stop along the way. Some people call it the gig economy, that there's not a career path any longer, but gigs along the way of that path. Those are challenges, and they're big time and real. This is why I am really excited that the first pillar of our upcoming capital campaign is faculty first, putting our faculty first. Our funding ideas are these. They were all developed in conversation with you and our teachers, so they are your ideas. Number one, we want to design an innovative menu of benefits so that each faculty member can choose what's best for him or her at their life stage. Menu-based benefits. Number two, we want to engage a personal financial advisor for every single one of our teachers so that advisor can create a personal financial plan so that that teacher and her or his family can feel the hope and the reality of staying at PBS. Third, we want to make sure that we have summer sabbaticals. Summer programs for 2, 3, or 4 weeks where teachers can retool and really deepen their excellence in the curriculum. They get paid, so it increases their compensation. We get increased longevity from our teachers. In addition, we want to continue learning and building and growing our curriculum by incentivizing compensation to encourage teachers to stay. Some of you have called them stay bonuses, encouraging teachers to stay longer periods of time at PBS. When I've shared this menu strategy with my peer heads at conferences, or when I've talked with other schools about what they're doing to retain faculty, all of them have told me that this list and menu of faculty-first initiatives is distinctive. Many of them said it's one of a kind. We haven't thought of this before. So I think that it's really exciting to invest in faculty first in this campaign, and we will give you many opportunities to do that. So our first priority, putting our teachers first. Second, we want to focus, as Corey said, on advancing our program. Our second priority is to always grow, to always innovate, and to always improve our program. Here are some important ways we're doing that. The first is we have a summer curriculum deep dive. I've shared that with you before. It's unique among schools. In their role as thought leaders, teachers drive the curriculum review at PBS. They examine teaching practices here at PBS. They study the relevant research. They use outside experts. They conduct field scans at other schools. And they set 3-year goals to make sure we take our curriculum to the next level of excellence. One example from last June in the curriculum deep dive, which included a comprehensive field scan of 13 independent schools, is that we designed from scratch a new role. It's a new role called Math Enrichment Coordinator. This role is very important to our school, and it has, I would say, 5 key priorities. The first is to enhance math differentiation. We want to make sure that all of our students are challenged to reach their full potential, to take the ceiling off of the math curriculum at PBS. In particular, we also need to support students who need additional math learning support. Secondly, we want to develop math learning extensions. In the education world, we call them extensions because we want to challenge particularly the students whose performance level is high or above grade level, so we can continue to have them soar in their math learning. Third, we want this person to expand teacher expertise, to grow the professional learning of our faculty. Fourth, we'd like to help you. You ask us all the time, how can we support math learning at home? And this person will be a point person for that effort. And then finally, I'm excited that we want to develop an advanced math support, and to actually call it an advanced math support, because that approach will balance strong math intuition with automaticity. It will balance conceptual math understanding with rigorous algorithmic thinking. It will balance the love of math learning that we so respect here at PBS with high computational fluency. Those things are not counter to each other, and this new role is to bring them together. A second way that we're striving for greater program excellence is something called the PBS dashboard. It's currently version 3.0, so we're just getting started. We actually created this dashboard approach as an evidence-based methodology to evaluate our curriculum. We wanted to evaluate how our program is doing and how the team that delivers it is doing. It uses third-party outside assessments. It also uses findings from our internal reviews. It actually identifies key performance indicators. Having spoken about this at many schools and conferences, I think we may be the only school that uses KPIs to measure its program and teachers. Based on our KPIs at PBS and our dashboard, we've implemented new initiatives this year. One of them is a new departmentalized teaching model in 4th and 5th grade, so our teachers can focus and our students can get ready for that model in middle school. Secondly, we've developed a Ready, Set, Go program. It's a pilot too, just like the departmentalized approach. This Ready, Set, Go program is intentionally designed to prepare students for the middle school process and for the middle school experience. Standardized test prep here at PBS, successful interviewing tactics, how to do a middle school interview, what it means to actually own your relationship with your teacher when your parents are not helping you with that when you get to middle school. In the past 3 years, we know that over 90% of our graduates have been admitted at one or more of their top 3 schools in the middle school placement process. This pilot program, Ready, Set, Go, is to ensure that we stay at the top of our game in placement and the top of our game in middle school experience when students leave PBS. The third is a new initiative that we are tackling to really look at the challenge of diversity, equity, and inclusion. All of you believe in a high sense of belonging at PBS, and we want to be the most diverse and inclusive community that we can be. So we are looking at strategies to support all kinds of diversity, including socioeconomic diversity, and we see this as a way to elevate that high sense of belonging at PBS, ways we're tackling challenges. And what I also want to mention tonight is that we're building a new invention program, as Corey mentioned. It's slated for the fall of 2020. Our goal is to be more intentional about teaching students how to be inventors and creators, not just consumers, to be inventive and creative, not consuming things. We see this as an opportunity to elevate STEM subjects like robotics, engineering, technology, coding, all languages important for today's workforce. I was inspired last summer by a talk by Stanford professor Tina Seelig. She talked about an invention cycle. You start with imagination. You use empathy to look at a problem and envision how you can solve that problem. Then you apply creativity, addressing this problem empathetically with new ways of thinking. Then you move to innovation. You innovate by thinking about unique solutions. And finally, and most importantly, you have to be an entrepreneur. That idea can't just be an idea. It's got to become a reality. You have to bring a new idea to fruition. You have to pitch it to your head of school, to your class, to your teacher, to your fellow students. Invention, imagination, creativity, innovation, and being an entrepreneur. So I said to Professor Seelig, it's cool to teach invention to college, but why shouldn't we teach invention at elementary school? Because the best place to teach invention is in elementary school, because 3 to 11-year-olds are inventive, and we need to capture it and build their capacity to be inventive. We want them to build a capacity to be an entrepreneur. After all, we're in Silicon Valley. We at PBS are inventive. She said, yes, I agree. And so we at PBS are going to build and invent an invention program. It will set us apart from schools who already have maker spaces and iLabs and design studios. We are going to have an invention program, and it's part of our upcoming capital campaign. And I think it's exciting to invest in something that's one of a kind, something that other schools haven't captured yet, an invention program for PBS that's cutting edge and ensures that the excellence of our program will be sustained for the future and will spark lifelong learning in our students. So finally, we love community. It's not up there, but it's one of our core values. And I say this all the time, and I've said this in Gather, we must have a high sense of belonging in our community. It's essential. Building up community at PBS is the third priority. You are active, engaged, generous, volunteer-oriented, and enthusiastic community members. Chuck knows that better than anyone. You like a good party, you like a good Gather talk, and you love a good classroom report. You appreciate volunteering in classrooms, and you offer your expertise all the time. I'd like to stop and say thank you for all of that. It's really, really important to pause and say thank you. It means so much to me, to my team, and to the entire school that you care so much about the community, that your commitment and support is so obvious in every way at PBS. I want to continue strengthening that partnership that makes this school so special and unique. We actually launched a new Family Connection program that we're piloting starting in January because we believe in strengthening that partnership. In fact, our accreditation team says that they've never heard the word pilot more at any school than at PBS. We're piloting things all the time. Test them, see how they work, grow them, improve them. That's the way schools get better. I think that this new Family Connection program will actually elevate our love of learning core value into the family community amongst all of you. We're doing this program because parents and PBS teachers, they're all co-educators of your children. We are all co-educators of your children. By naming that you and PBS teachers are co-educators, we're actually honoring the uniqueness of each family's parenting approach, honoring your uniqueness as a family, while providing you tools that you can use at home that are aligned with our values at PBS. Here's what I've heard from you as you think about this Family Connection program. The first is that our mission and core values are the anchor for everything. You really mean it when you name our mission and core values. The accreditation team was right. You also love to reimagine parent education because you, like my team, we want to improve in new areas. We would like to have programs that address complex topics on your mind today, not 5 years ago. You also like customized, not one size fits all, so that you can choose. So our new Family Connection program is about a variety of topics that you've selected and suggested, so that you can choose whether to come personally, to view it from home, or to read an article. I call that the Netflix approach to the Family Connection program. You get to choose it when you want it and how you want it. And finally, you've also said that you appreciate that our new Family Connection is co-planned, co-owned, and co-led by school teachers and by parents. That is awesome because we are using your expertise and the expertise here at the school to co-own and co-lead this new Family Connection program. It's really distinctive to do this together, parents and school. In addition to this wonderful Family Connection program, I want to highlight another important priority for me, and that's a full-scale assessment and enhancement of our campus security and safety plan. It is one of my top goals this year. We are doing everything we can that we can look at new ways to ensure safety and security at PBS, to ensure that we are doing that in this very complicated landscape around us. To support this effort, we have hired Jaffe Emergency Services. They are the independent school go-to place to really look at service providers around campus security. They are an all-in-one provider. They look at emergency response training, they look at event safety, they look at succession planning, and disaster preparedness. I've had a one-on-one with their CEO, and they're excellent, and I'm very excited about the work they're doing with the school. We are committed to having the best possible campus safety and security plan for our students and for you. But we've also identified other challenges. There are other headwinds that I have put into the minds of the board and some of you, and we've discussed these. And here are the headwinds that I really want to talk about right now. We don't have an indoor facility that can accommodate the entire community. It's a challenge at the talent show or at holiday concerts or Grandparents' Day. We also don't have indoor space for our current athletics and sports programs, not to mention our future athletics and sports programs. We are facing space constraints for that expanding after-school program and that new summer program. It was 0 when I got here 8 years ago, and now we're overrun with students in our summer and after-school program, but we don't have space for all of them. And when it rains, or when the air quality is bad, which is probably not going to get any better, we don't have enough indoor space to really keep all of our students and teachers excited and active to be in school during the day. These are huge challenges. They're problems, they're headwinds. So our upcoming capital campaign will aim to build a new community center, and we are going to call it a community center. It will provide a full-size gym as well as first-rate learning spaces for enrichment, for sports, for games, and for wellness offerings. It will double as a space for performance, for full community gatherings, and for other opportunities. So imagine this, the new community center seating problems at PBS. Now, this community center is exciting, and it's all the more exciting because of an update on our lease. As you know, since 1978, PBS has been leasing its campus from our landlord, the Los Lomitas Elementary School District, just down the hill. We have chased after this lease for our entire history, and I am really pleased to let you know that this afternoon, we signed a lease extension through 2062. We have a lease extension through 2062. Thank you. Yes, that's the correct number. I'm not joking. We have a secure campus for 43 years. It means that community center will be around for all of your children, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, aunts, and everyone else. We're also at the same time more than doubling the life of our 41-year-old school in one stroke of the pen. We have also actively addressed campus permanence, which is the most elusive strategic problem on PBS's plate for its entire history. We've addressed that key strategic problem. And the best news of all is we really like the terms. The terms are good for PBS, and the terms are good for the school district. We have deepened our partnership with our landlord because that relationship is key. So we're here to stay. I want to really thank a few people who have made this possible. I want to point out Hema, who went with me the very first time about 3.5 years ago when we first talked to the district. I want to thank Kim Normington, the school's CFO, who has run probably 50,000 different spreadsheets to make this look good and work. And I want to highlight 2 board chairs, Corey Malloy, our current board chair, and our former board chair, Mike Wyatt, who even after he finished being the board chair, stuck with it till today. Let's give them a round of applause for their support. I also think it's a great time to point out all of our trustees. They're all here, many of them either watching at home or here tonight. It is really great to be a head of school that has an outstanding partnership with its board, and we have that at PBS. A key performance indicator of success for schools is sustained leadership and strong board-head partnership. And I feel fantastic about the partnership with this board. So thank you to the Board of Trustees for everything you do for the school. So returning my talk back to where we started, back to my role as your head, elevate strategic initiatives, engage all of you as stakeholders, drive initiatives, and mobilize every single resource to enable our wonderful school to be its best. Your enthusiasm and your support really do impact this school. Your support really does impact the 3 areas that we want to prioritize to be an excellent school and to strive for even greater excellence. Faculty first, program strength, and a community where all of us would belong. I am really grateful for all of you, for all of your support, And I'm grateful that all of you spark the learning in every single student. Thank you. We have about 7 minutes for some questions, and it can be about the finance presentation, what Corey said or Chuck said, or something I said. We'd love to hear what questions you have, or your thoughts and ideas. I rarely silence a crowd like this. Oh, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob. I do want to really call out. Oh, go ahead, Jeff. Yes.
So if you think about, you guys last year, the last couple of years, looked at the strategic plan and thought about a potential middle school. And with signing this 42 lease, how does that give you flexibility if you want to revisit that in the future?
I think signing a lease through 2062 gives us all kinds of pivot room and pilot room, because it means that we have the right to stay. In other words, we can't be asked to leave. The terms are very favorable to have us want to stay, I think, and we like the terms. So I think what this just simply does, it says that it solves a key strategic issue right now, gives us a chance to really go after this campaign and these new funding initiatives with alacrity, and then to say that the world is our oyster, that we can build the school for the future that we want to build. So I think really having this lease in place is a solution to a lot of issues that can help us look to the future. Thank you. I do want to really call out particularly Mike, who has been doing this with me for several years in his 2 years as board chair, and agreed to stick with it after he termed out. And today, for me to text him and say it's signed and done, I think was a relief and a joy for you. But really, Mike, thank you for your leadership. So we are done early. Normally at parent education events, there are thousands of questions. But let me just say this. If there's anything you want to talk about, if something got you interested or provoked your thinking or made you excited, or if you actively would like to engage with me or my team on any of these topics, you've read about them in the Engage or you see them at the school, our doors are always open. I have the best team in the Bay Area. They are really tremendous. Many of them are here tonight. And I just want to say thank you to all of them for everything they do for the school, particularly Alana, Kim, Mita, Jordan, and Leslie, but also to the entire administrative team, to Michael, who makes sure that everything that we do is recorded so you can watch it whenever you want, and really to make sure that everything we do at the school is transparent to you. We want to be an open-door, transparent school. That's how you increase belonging. So you should never hesitate to ask if you have a question. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks for coming tonight. Have a great evening.